This is Rose with IdeateTV, and I'm here with Stephen L. Sears. So, can you tell me a little bit about your book?
I will tell you about my book. This book right here, this is called Stalag X. And Stalag X was written by myself and Kevin J. Anderson. And if you know who Kevin J. Anderson is, he and Brian Herbert write all the Dune sequels, all of those books. And Kevin has his own line of books, the Saga of the Seven Sons. He does a lot of anthologies. He and I met because we were at a convention together, and I worked primarily in television. I was actually one of the writers on the original A-Team series, and I've worked on Superboy, Swamp Thing, JJ Starbuck, Riptide, Stingray. I was a co-exec producer and one of the head writers for Xena Warrior Princess. I also co-created the last version of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. I do development stuff with all the studios. So we decided we wanted to try to put something together. And we came up with this, Stalag X. And Stalag X is basically a futuristic story about a war of genocide between humans and an alien species. And we are losing that war. It's a war of genocide. Nobody takes prisoners. And yet, our lead character is taken prisoner and sent to a concentration camp, and that doesn't make sense. These aliens should not be trying to keep prisoners because they just want to destroy us. And what is discovered is that it's possible that they are not as confident on winning this war because they do not understand what humanity is. One of the reasons we wrote this wasn't just because of the flashy monsters and laser beams. It was to make a commentary about the human condition under these circumstances. Throughout history, concentration camps, for example, during war, to survive it, you only had one basic defense that you could rely on, and that was to desperately hope you could connect to the humanity of your captors. If you could do that, you had a chance at surviving because they wanted to dehumanize you. So Kevin and I thought, well, what if you're in that situation and your captors aren't even human? There's nothing to connect to. And we were very brutal. This is a very brutal, it is not a child's story. We decided we're going to go for the actual aspect of war that we don't talk about. So we wrote it with it in this particular environment. The artwork was done by Mike Ratera, who is just a fantastic artist. I mean, he's just incredible. There's also a novella in the back that Kevin and I wrote about one of the characters. Now, the interesting thing is that because I've worked in television, I immediately started getting this out there to the studios to see if there would be any interest. We did get interest. We got a phone call from a director named Francis Lawrence. Francis has directed all but one of the Hunger Games. He's directed I Am Legend, Constantine, Red Sparrow. He's one of my favorite directors, and he reached out to us. So we signed a deal with Francis, and it is now, I believe, with United Pictures Entertainment for development. We still have an option deal with this to develop it into a feature film. So that's what we've been doing. And I've got other books and also short story collection that'll be coming up later on.
Want to share any of the other short stories that you have coming up?
It's interesting that I have a collection of short stories that will be released later on this year. After I had been doing all of my television work, which I still do, I was invited to write short stories for anthologies. In fact, the first anthology of the Alien versus Predator universe, my story is in there. So it was the first one that came out that was an anthology. And I love that whole experience. So with this next book, that is a collection of short stories, it's all ready to go, but I don't have a title. And the reason I don't have a title is the way my mind works and comes up with stories is that the stories are very eclectic. There's horror, there's science fiction, there's fantasy, there's romance, it's all over. But the title needs to be something that can pull it together. And so it is kind of strange to say I have completed this book, it is ready for publication, and the only thing I'm missing is actually what to call it. So there's that one. And then I also have this book. This one came out several years ago. It's still relevant. This is I'm going to preface this saying I'm not really in love with the title, but the publisher loved it. The Non-User-Friendly Guide for Aspiring TV Writers. And this was basically anecdotes and some insights about working in the television industry if you wanted to be a writer. But it also applies to actors and directors. And it's not really to teach you to write, but breaking into the business is the second hardest thing. Staying in the business is the hardest thing. And that's what this is talking about, because I've been doing this for 40 years.
Wow. Well, is there anywhere I can find your work?
Yes, I mean, this is Wordfire Publishing, and you can find this on Amazon, as a matter of fact. The collection of short stories will probably be coming out through Amazon. And this one, however, you can probably only find this if you find myself or Kevin. This was published by The Vault. They did a fantastic job, but it's not listed anymore. So, hopefully when the movie comes out, obviously there'll be a resurgence in this. So, yeah, if you can track down Kevin J. Anderson, and his publishing is Wordfire, you might be able to find one of those. So there you go.
Well, thank you. This is Rose with IdeateTV.